Hi everyone, welcome to Happier Active. I'm Ellie, and this week I spoke to Renae Fieck, who wrote a book called Sync Your Business. She's also a coach and mentor, and she has a podcast which is great as well. She talks about how you can, as a woman, when you understand your menstrual cycle and how to work with it better, you can use that knowledge to kind of really level up what you're able to achieve. And we talked a lot about, masculine and feminine energy and really being able to embrace that feminine side. And the more you understand yourself, the better you can implement these things to kind of really use your superpowers that we get. She has loads of really interesting stuff to say. Her book is awesome. There's details in the show notes, but you can get a free copy of it if you're in the US. You just pay for shipping with the code Ellie and the links in the bottom, and I'll talk about that a bit more at the end as well. Other than that, next week it's going to be a bit of a different episode. I'm traveling, so it's going to be hard for me to do the normal promotion I would, so I'm going to do a solo episode. I keep getting asked to do like an about me and some more about what I do, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to answer the most common questions I get asked. I'm going to record it in a few days, so if you're listening to this when it comes out, if you have any specific questions that you want answered, email me happieractive@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram. I'm also going to put a story up on my Instagram to get questions as well to answer. And then I'm going to kind of make that the end of season 1, and then there'll be no gap. I'll just come back for season 2, but bit of fun. Got to somehow break these series up. And I think that's it. I'm just going to let you get on and enjoy, because this is a really great episode.
So there are many ways to find your path to better health and happiness, and what works is highly individualized. And my philosophy is that most people are more likely to find that if they're active participants in their own journey. This is a space to start exploring some of the rich and varied areas in which people practice, so you can start thinking about what resonates with you and discover new or different practices to either start or deepen your current health practices. And today I have Renae Fieck, who wrote the amazing book Sync Your Business. So welcome, and why don't you tell us a bit about what you do?
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I know we were just like chit-chatting, and I'm like, I'm like itching at the bit, like to have a conversation with you. This can be so good. I am Renae. I am an occupational therapist by trade. I live in San Diego. And probably about 8 years ago now, I had a whirlwind of a month in May of 2015. I found out I was pregnant. I got what I thought was my dream job. And my husband was diagnosed with a brain tumor all in the same month. And so we had a whirlwind of a year, really, truly, and kind of got to this place of wow, life goes by so fast, and we are never guaranteed tomorrow. And so how are we living today in the way that we really want to live today? And that's what catapulted me into starting a business and growing a business, and did it a very very masculine way, and burnt myself out a couple years in, was like, I'm not getting the results that I want. This is not working. I'm now sacrificing the very things that I wanted. I wanted more time with my family and wanted more freedom. And now I'm squeezing work into every living crack of every time of my day. This is not working. And in that season was when I discovered how women and men are so different, and how it changes the way we work. It changes the way we exercise. It changes the way we eat. It changes literally how we think. Literally every part of us is so different. And most of us just aren't taught that. And so once I kind of discovered that and realized that and started diving into that, more and more women were like, we need to know this. More women need to know this. And so that's what I do now, really helping women kind of come back to themselves, come back to their bodies, reclaim their power, understand how they work, how their body operates, how their brain works, and to be able to align with that and feel really good with that, and not feel like we're doing just because we do things differently than men that we're any less than, or any of that sort of thing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I love that. God, that is a really whirlwind year, right? Highs and lows, and
yes,
all in one go.
It was a crazy year, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this because I think a lot of the business advice you see online, especially, you know, when you're starting out, is very like that masculine energy and that kind of
Totally.
hustle culture, which I always find when I'm reading it doesn't really align with me, and then I don't know, so then you're trying to like figure out from it what you can take of it that's going to be useful to you, but get rid of all the like super mask stuff that doesn't really fit. So this is, yeah, great. We need more of this.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just like interject too. A lot of times we don't know that it's masculine, right? We don't know, because like most of the business stuff, or even time management, most of the time management stuff out there, most of the health stuff out there, like I still work in the NICU per diem. And I was in there with the other day, and I overheard our neonatologist talking to a bunch of the nurses, and I came in on like partly through the conversation, and I was like, oh, are we talking about how to lower our cholesterol? Is that what this conversation's about? And she's like, no, we're just talking about how different men and women are, and how research is lacking for women, and that we don't have the health data on women, and how women are so different, and a lot of the things that we're being taught that are health-wise healthy and good for us and whatever, she goes, are not being researched on women. And so, I mean, just putting it out there, like most of what we see and most of what we know isn't data driven based on women. And so a lot of us don't even see it as like, this is a masculine strategy. We just feel like there's something wrong with us when we feel totally burnt out. We're feeling inconsistent. We're feeling overwhelmed. We're like exhausted because we can't do it all. There's a whole systemic pressure on that, like a societal thing there. But just even then, we don't realize like we are functioning and operating in a way that has no research backed for women. It's all backed for the way men work. Yeah.
Yeah, and the irony is that most of the reason that that's not done is because of the hormones that are then causing the very difference.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. Like,
so I have ADHD, and when I started taking medication after I finished breastfeeding again, my symptoms got much worse, and I was retitrating up. Anyway, and I said to my psychiatrist, when I went for the check, I kind of noticed the first like 2 or 3 days before my period, my medication doesn't seem to really work. And he basically kind of dismissed that. It was a bit like, whatever. And then I went online to like a women's forum, and that seems to be like a very common experience. So then I was like, okay, well, it's a thing. So I just have to build that into how I operate. But it was interesting that he was just like, probably not. You're probably just imagining it. And then you go into women's spaces and everyone's like, yep, that's the same. We have that exact same issue. And it's, so you kind of have to find your information in different places.
yes, so much so. And so I think for me, you are 100% correct. Like, especially with ADHD, your brain is functioning so differently and the hormones amplify it, right? So like if a normal brain is functioning one way and like just normal like hormones, right? Like as a man, like normal hormones for a man are the same every single day. Like they just function in the same. Testosterone is like repeat. Women have estrogen, progesterone that plays out. And so as you move through the month with estrogen, progesterone, you feel so different depending on where you are in that. But then now we add in the differences of how ADHD and how that works on your brain. So now we have hormones acting different, and now we have ADHD acting different on the brain.
Yeah.
Your brain functions very different. Like you are legitimately operating very differently than, say, a man with testosterone. Like totally different. And so with ADHD, it does oftentimes amplify the effects of what we feel. So those, you know, in the luteal phase right before the period, a lot of women are feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, frustrated, like triggered, all of those things, like cannot get yourself together type of feel. If you have ADHD, it's going to make it almost feel more so. Like you're going to feel that the effects even more so. And
so when people are kind of going to get started, like thinking about how to then make all of this work better with them, like with their lives day to day, how do you get people started with that?
Totally. I think one, it's just becoming aware of what's actually happening inside of our bodies. I think a majority of women don't know. We don't know what's actually happening. If we know, we've learned maybe enough to like, how do we either A, get pregnant, or B, not get pregnant, right? There's not a whole lot more in that vein that we really understand of how our body is happening to us. So I think the more that we just start listening to our bodies, the more we come back to, okay, what is my body actually feeling? We become a better advocate.
Yeah.
Right? So like you knowing like, hey, this is how my brain functions. This is how I'm functioning. This is what's going on. Like this is the data makes you a better advocate when you go back to your doctor.
Yeah.
Because you're able to say like, this is the trend. This is the pattern. This is what the science essentially, like they're science driven people, right? So this is the science of what's actually happening in my brain and in my body every single month. Like please help support it. Right. And if that doctor is not going to do it, then go find another doctor. There's plenty of new research coming out. And some doctors are getting more on board about it. But even then, as women, like just in general, we think that we have to go to the doctor and think that the doctor knows everything. But sometimes the doctor needs us to help educate too, like advocate, like they're going to now go do their research, hopefully, and they're going to look into it and start figuring out like, okay, yeah, this woman was right. Like there's all of this new research, all this stuff out there, right? So you being somebody who's advocating for what's happening in your body is going to help create that change in the world that we want to see happen, number one. Number two, that comes just from like, how do I listen to my body? There are so many different ways. There are so many different things that we can do. As society and culture, we've really been taught to shut off listening to our bodies in as simple as things of like our food, right? We were told to eat all the food on our plates. We were told there's starving kids in Africa. Like you've got to eat everything. Like we are told to go to bed at a certain time. We're told to wake up at certain times. Like we're really in our society taught to not listen to our body's cues, but to listen to these external cues of like what is good and right and how do we function. And there's some element of like, yes, we have to function in life, right? Like we have to go to school, we have to go to work and things like that. But when we look at it just from a systemic thing, like most of us have not been taught to really listen. So sometimes we do need, like you and I were both talking about the Aura Ring. Sometimes we have tools like the Aura Ring or maybe an Apple Watch or the Fem Drop or whatever they might be to help us cue in to listen of like what's actually happening inside the body. Yeah. And sometimes it's just getting still, like just sitting with your body and asking like, what do I need? Like, where am I? Just before this, I had a call with my mastermind and I did a breath work session at the beginning, and one of the clients was like, I have not felt this grounded in a long time. And like all we did was take a moment and pause and look at all of the different parts of our body and like what's present for that. Like where are we? What is our body actually feeling? And we're just not doing that. So I think that would be a huge one for sure.
Yeah. And what I like about the cycle tracking to start with, like I think at the beginning I knew that there were like patterns, but I hadn't realized how much they were attached to points of my cycle. And so probably, you know, when this Aura Ring dies, I won't need to get another one because I understand now, because I now know what's going on in my body more, because that just helped me when I chanted symptoms for like 2 or 3 months, and then you can start to see a pattern of like, oh yeah, it's always in this phase that I feel more tired, or it's always in this phase that I don't get enough sleep, or it's always in so then you start noticing it more and you understand what it's linked to, rather than just like, oh, every couple of weeks I'm a bit tired for whatever reason, probably because I'm too busy, or you know.
That's what women feel inconsistent, right? A lot of women feel like, man, why was it like a week ago I got so much done and this week I'm falling apart, right? Even just recently I was at my son's baseball game and I was chatting with another mom and I was like, you know what I think I need a household manager, like somebody that'll come in, get my meals prepped, do my laundry, like pick up the little things around the house, like somebody who could just like help out around the house. And I was like talking to her about it. And then I started rationalizing it. I'm like, you know, we go to baseball and then by the time we're home, there's not enough time to make dinner. And so we're buying food out and I'm paying $50 for every time we go eat food out. If I had somebody and I paid her $100 a week, like I probably would save money. I'm like talking myself through it, right? Like rationalizing how spending money on this is actually going to help me and save me. I literally went home. I put a job posting up. I had somebody lined up to interview, and then the interview fell through. And then by then I'm in a whole new phase of my cycle, right? Like by the time I get there, and I'm like, I don't need a household manager. Like I got this. I can take care of this. Like all I need to do is make dinner and do the laundry. I'm good. Like we're fine. And so it's like even looking at things like that of like where we feel like we're falling apart, where we need help, where we don't, like how our brain's functioning, you know, workouts, like there are plenty of times when I was working out, and before I was like, I'm a hardcore workouter. And there were weeks when I'm like, I just don't want to do it. I do not want to work out. And I would feel so guilty about not working out because I had been conditioned that we work out every day. This is a practice, this like thing that I go hard and I push hard every day. And even those ones when I would do it, you're like, ugh, I'm not lifting as heavy. I'm not running as hard. I'm like crashing. And we just don't get it. We don't understand it until we start looking at like, these are the hormones. This is how you are so different. It's not anything wrong with you. It's just that you haven't been taught to live according to it and how to master it and how to really leverage it. And so when you're operating in that testosterone driven sort of way, it is going to always feel like you're falling behind and you're not doing a good enough job. And once you get into that rhythm of like, this is how I'm supposed to function, then it changes the game. Like you no longer feel behind. You no longer feel like you're being like guilty or lazy or inconsistent or whatever. It's like, no, you just operate on a different rhythm.
Yeah. And I think when I talk to people about this, sometimes I think, especially around exercise, it can feel different. But for me, so what I try and say, like from my experience, is that I can do the same workout. For me, it's in my luteal phase. I know for some people it can be during their period. For me, it's just before. I can do it the same, but I don't recover as well. And so then why would I put my body into a position where then the next day I'm already like at a disadvantage because I haven't recovered as well? So it's like knowing the data. So on that day, instead of, if I had a run planned, I'd go for a walk instead. Or if I was going to go lift weights, I'll do some Pilates or something. But, and it's just being in tune with like, actually that means I'm going to feel better today, and then tomorrow I'm not going to be exhausted because my body's not recovering so well. So then even though my period's due to start tomorrow, where traditionally I might be in a really bad mood, I haven't overloaded my body, and so then I'm going to deal with that day better. So it's trying to reframe it like that is how I try and help
100%. Yeah. And it's almost just recovery, but also you're more prone to injury. Right? Yeah. So like in that luteal phase, you're more prone to injury if you push yourself hard. So you might think like, oh, let's just keep pushing hard, but then you injure yourself and now you're back and like now you're farther behind than you were in the beginning. So there is a whole host of reasons why our body functions like that, and leaning into it and supporting it does have huge benefits. It's like I have a friend of mine, her whole thing is all around fitness and and cycling, and she's amazing. Like she is so ripped. She's got, like she eats on point. Like she has way more time. She doesn't have kids. Like she's like I look at her sometimes. I'm like, I'm in awe of the lifestyle you have. But it's all about that. Like how before she was like burning herself out, just hustling and trying to lift the same as her partner and trying to eat the same as her partner. And it just doesn't work the same. Like we are not the same. And when we do it that way, we do end up creating more cortisol in the body. And more cortisol in the body it's like the stress hormone, has ramifications on every part of our body. So long term, it has impacts on our bones. It impacts on our heart. It has impacts on our blood vessels. It has impacts on the way our muscles recover. Like it legit has impacts on our entire system, And most women are operating with cortisol probably a little bit higher than it needs to be, because our bodies are fighting that natural response all the time.
Yeah. And it is, and something that oftentimes when people end up coming to work with, so I'm a health coach, so it's often because they've got chronic stress that's having a long-term impact on other areas of their life, because the way that the world works at the moment, especially for a lot of women, where you've got to like try and have it all, and so you've got your job and you're trying to do the kids and you're trying to do this and this and this, and so people are just operating in this kind of level of high stress all the time, and they never come down from it. And then they start seeing some of these impacts like poor digestion and poor sleep and that caffeine alcohol cycle that we have probably all fallen into at some point or another. And then when your body is also fighting against that, it's really tough to get out of.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. You think of like how much healthier would our world be, like our society really? Like, I don't think everybody in the world operates the same way we do, but like how much healthier would we be if we could just lower that cortisol just a teeny bit, right? And if we look at everything we do in our world and everything we do in our life as being like, how am I adding stress or decreasing stress on my body? Am I adding stress by drinking coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach? Am I decreasing stress by spending 5 minutes in meditation? Am I decreasing stress by not using pesticides and, toxins and fragrances, like those things in my products? Like where and there's some things we're not going to be able to shift and change, right? And it's about letting go of those things and not like hyper stressing about where is stress coming from, but just being really aware. I think the awareness is the biggest thing of just being aware of where in our life, like what is it that actually is adding stress to my body and what's not? And how do I just maybe change and tweak a few things here and there to help decrease that stress load? And it'll make a big difference if we just start looking at like, can I make a small little tweak? Can I make a little bit of change? And that's what I oftentimes, like, people with their cycle come to me and they're like, does everything in my life have to match up with my cycle? A lot of women are like, that's not possible, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have 3 kids. There is no way that there's like a week of my life that I'm just like, see ya, I'm out of here. I'm not doing anything because I have 3 kids. Like, I have a life, right? But there's so many small little things that we can do to help accommodate even with our cycle. So, when you look at that week, when you're like needing a little bit more recovery, you're needing a little bit more time. Those are the times I'm like, I'm not worrying about the laundry. The laundry is going to pile up in a giant pile on my couch and I'm going to let it sit there. Or I'm going to, order takeout this week. We're not going to actually worry about eating food, and maybe I eat on paper plates, or, like, what is it? Where can I make those small little shifts and adjustments to decrease and take off the load? And every time you make one tiny decision like that, you're decreasing that cortisol a little bit.
Yeah.
You just look at it as like every decision is an opportunity to turn it up or turn it down. And in a non-stressful way. Don't like take that as like, oh my gosh, everything I do is like adding stress or decreasing stress. But really it is like, and when we start to look at like, how am I intentionally just imposing these small little things to help decrease that stress level? Taking a tiny little breath at the stoplight, right? I notice I'm a breathwork facilitator, and when I became a breathwork facilitator, I remember going through the training and I was like, I didn't realize how much I'm holding my breath all the time. Like all the time. I'm just like sitting at a stoplight, or I'm sitting here working and I'm like holding my breath. And it's like, I'm running from a lion all the time. Like that's not helpful. And so just that awareness of like, breathe, like that alone has changed so much in my like nervous system, in my body, and my stress levels. So just start paying attention to those like small little things that you can interject with where your cycle's at and how your body is feeling, and supporting it. Maybe it's a bubble bath. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's like, hey, I need a break this week. Like, please just give me some patience. Like, let me go stand outside for a second and scream, like whatever it is. All those like tiny little things that you do are going to help for sure.
Yeah. And then on the kind of positive side, then that's like because I know then like in that next week, I'm going to have loads more energy. And so I'll have the time to get to it. So it's easier to then be like, so I always know, again, in that like 2 weeks after my period, that I can get loads done. And that's like the best time for me to like do my stuff for social media, or like if I'm filming for courses or doing like adverts for this or solo episodes, that's when I try and do it, because that's when I know I have the like creative energy for it and I'm going to be 100%. Pleased with the work. And that and once I understood that, it helped me so much, because then on those other weeks I wasn't trying to force myself to do something that I knew I was going to be unhappy with the outcome of. I'd be like, well, I'll do admin this afternoon instead, because I know next Wednesday I'm going to be in much more of the zone for this thing that I need to do, like putting myself on camera, which I always feel a bit uncomfortable with. So giving myself the best opportunity to like feel like I'm doing it well. So it's like those positive changes as well as the bad sides.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like I legit think that like every phase of our cycle has a superpower.
Yeah.
every single phase, honestly, most of my clients, like they come to me like not loving those weeks when we're feeling a little down. Like they come to me like, oh, these weeks are like, I work with a lot of high achievers, right? So they're like, these weeks take me down and they suck and I don't like them. And what do I do? And then as we go through and we start really uncovering like the superpowers of each of the phases and how, like you said, when we lean into them, how they change the next one and this and that, like those 2 weeks actually become most of my clients' favorite weeks. Like they embrace them in such a deep way because they are so magical and they are so powerful. And what they do for us is amazing. It's about reframing the way we look at them for 100%. So like, like letting go of the dishes and letting go of the laundry and all those types of things might feel like I'm giving up on something, but it's actually because we know where your energy is best spent during that phase to get the most out of that phase. And that's what really changes the game for people. And then, like you said, yes, it's like, I know when I hit that follicular phase, I'm going to be busting things out left and right. I'm going to be feeling good. I'm like, I got the vet appointment scheduled. I got the dentist appointment scheduled. I got the laundry done. I got like legit, I'm conquering life right now. And I know that that's going to happen because I've created that space to rest and recharge and do what that other phase needed me to do. And that's where the magic comes in. It's like when you understand the superpower and the strength of each one of those different phases and what they're doing and how they're setting you up, you become unstoppable. And like, it's game changing for sure. And it changes it. So like you said, like it doesn't become these like bad weeks and good weeks. It's like every week is an amazing week. They're just meant to be doing very different things. And that's where we need to shift.
Yeah. Do you know what? I had someone who's a guest on this a while ago. And this is the kind of thing I love to get. And the more it happens, the more I'm... Anyway, she emailed me like a couple of days before we were supposed to record and was like, I'm really sorry. Like, I've just realised my period's going to start on the day we're supposed to be recording. And I just know I'm not going to be able to show up very well as myself. Like, do you mind if we reschedule? And I was like, no, I love that. Like, great, let's do it a week later when you're feeling good. And I love the fact that more people are making that a normal thing to do. Just be like, I'm not going to be my best self, so I'd rather do it next week when I'm going to be in a much better place to showcase myself. And like normalizing that is, I love it.
Yeah, it's normalizing that we can cancel plans and we can move things and we can adjust things to be where we're at. And also there's going to be times when we can't. Yeah. Right? So like for say you were on stage speaking at an event and they're like, oh, you're the keynote speaker. You can't, like you can't change that thing. Then it goes back to just looking at that awareness of like, what do you need in order to show up at your best in that phase? Right? So like say you were like, no, I can't change this podcast. Like it has to go out or like whatever, right? If you told her like, no, we can't reschedule, it's not going to work, then it's like, how does she support herself so that she can show up as the fullest that she can? And it's that awareness too of like, there are going to be things in our lives that we can totally cancel and change and move and adjust and like to meet where our energy's at. And there's also going to be things we can't. But when we can't, what are we doing to support our energy and support our bodies so that we are optimizing how we feel and how we show up and we're not just like running ourselves into the ground through all of it, which is what most women are doing. Like they're just running themselves into the ground and seeing every week as the same and like we just got to keep going when in reality we're not. So it's like, I have had podcast interviews that I've done like on my period, even as the cycle syncing expert coach, whatever, like it happens. I've launched in the middle of it. Like it happens, but it's when I know it's happening or it's like, okay, how am I going to make sure I'm taking meditation? I'm doing some breath work. I'm like shaking out, I'm grounding, or I'm going for a walk, or I'm clearing out the rest of my calendar. Like, I'll oftentimes find myself at the beach at the end of the day. Like those types of things, like what are we doing to help support the body after?
Yeah, and that's the kind of like, okay, you've got this big presentation at work, you can't move that, but say the night before, you're going to have a really good meal, go to bed really early, like do all that extra support to make sure that the huge amount of energy that you need that's going to be harder to find is there. Yeah. And it makes a huge difference. That's where we start looking at like, what are just those like micro changes that we can make? What are those simple things, right? Like this doesn't have to be this like big overwhelming, like overhaul your entire life.
And
Yeah.
I mean, to some extent, like if everything in our life matched up, great. But even looking at you and I, we're probably in different phases of our cycle. And
Yeah.
so if we were trying to match up on a podcast, one of us is going to be out of sync.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's going to happen. So it's like, let's just look at like, how do we take this knowledge? How do we take the understanding of where our body's at, optimize it to the best that we can, and then give ourselves grace and permission to adjust where it doesn't? And how do we let ourselves like flow through life and have that capacity to, you know, lean into where we're at and also set the boundaries for what we need, and just be really going back to that, what you asked me in the beginning of like, what's the first step, is like just becoming aware of like what it is you actually need, and how do you adjust to that? How do you create that?
Yeah, and having that data and understanding, and at the beginning you were saying about, you know, having that self-awareness is really helpful, because then you have, the more you know, the more you can support yourself. And so then
Totally.
And then when stuff starts changing, like I'm definitely like a bit perimenopausal, and I've definitely noticed some changes, but I think they're small enough that if I didn't have that understanding of my cycle, I wouldn't yet have noticed them. I'd have just been thinking, oh, I'm not sleeping very well at the
100%.
moment, or like, because I'm now able, because I can pinpoint exactly where those changes are happening, I know that they're hormone related. But I think 3 years ago, before I started paying attention to this stuff more, I wouldn't have realized that that's what's happening, because it's very early days.
Yeah. And I think that our society has a very little understanding of how to actually support women going through menopause. So like you said, like understanding those small little micro shifts that are happening for you, you're going to be able to support your body now, rather than, you know, like the symptoms getting so extreme that then you're like, wow, I have like zero libido absolutely at all, and I'm not sleeping at all, and I've gained 40 pounds, and like what the heck has happened to my body, right? Like that's what happens for a lot of women, is like it gets so extreme, but it's not an extreme change that happens like overnight. It's a slow progression. And so if you understand where your hormones are at now and what's happening and what's changing, you can support them now rather than waiting until it gets really extreme. And like I have these theories. They're only theories at this point in time. I need the research, but I do believe that women that are syncing with their cycle and listening to their cycle and understanding it will go through menopause easier. I think that they will support that natural progression in a much more easeful way than what the experience is for a lot of women. And there are like cultures around the world that do not go through menopause like we do. Like they don't have all the cold sweats and like the hot flashes and like all of the things that our society has and that we've normalized. Like there are cultures around the world that do not have that. So like when we start to see that, we're like, there's something here for us to learn about going through menopause.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's something I've talked to a few women actually on this about, and I actually had someone on who that's what she specializes in, and we were talking about it a lot. And what is interesting is that because a lot of the changes that can happen for some people aren't related, so their cycle might not change for quite a while, but they might be having a lot of other symptoms. And so when they go to their doctor, and this comes back to that being able to advocate for yourself and knowing yourself, because they'll go and the OBGYN will just say, well, but are you spotting, or has your cycle changed? And if they say no, and it might be because it's only shortened, you know, their cycle's gone from 28 days to 25 days, and if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't really notice that. So unless it's got much shorter, and so then they'll be like, oh, well, it's probably not that, you've probably got anxiety or depression or a mental health condition. And then, but actually if you understand better what the symptoms are and what's happening in your body, then you're much more able to say, well, no, because the heart palpitations are only happening at this point in my cycle, not all the time. It's always in this point of my cycle. The night sweats are only happening at this point every time, and that's the pattern. So it must be hormonal, not a mental health condition.
Yeah, totally. I think, like I said, I think if we look at like most of the research that's been done in our medical system has not included women. And if it did include women, they were required to be on birth control in order to be included in the studies. What we know about birth control is it eliminates all of that hormonal shift, right? So we didn't have adequate information on women that going through most of the studies that we've had. And even now, like I can't remember the exact date. I should look it up again. But it's only been, I think it was 1985 which was the year I was born, 1985 was the year that women were actually recommended to be included in studies.
Yeah.
So it's only been in my lifetime, that we've actually been doing any research really on women. That's not a lot. And I think even more so, like it's only been in the last decade or two that we've really started researching women's conditions. And so I think we will start to I think more and more data and more research is going to come out. And I think it does come from women just advocating of like, these are the things I'm experiencing. This is the way it's happening, and being an advocate for that. And maybe doing some like grassroots type of interventions, like working with holistic practitioners and health coaches and things like that, that maybe are thinking a little bit more in that holistic, whole body sort of way.
Yeah, and I have a couple of general practice doctors that I actually work with, and they refer me clients, and I think they're starting to realise that they need help from like holistic practitioners, because it's, by the time people are getting lifestyle diseases, it's often got so complicated that they know they need more sort of hand-holding, coaching type health interventions, and that the general practitioners don't have the time for, but also they don't actually have the knowledge for. They kind of acknowledge like, oh, actually, this is much more complicated than just pre-diabetes or a heart disease, and telling someone to just go for a walk every day, even though that does reduce their statistics, it's not enough. And we need to all work together to try and help people who've got into these big muddles.
And I will just say, like, that is amazing that you have those doctors that are recognizing that and acknowledging that. I think, like, that's amazing. That's an amazing doctor that's going to recognize, hey, this is where my expertise and my knowledge stops, and this is where I want to hand it off to somebody else. And I think that is what needs to shift.
Yeah, and I'm definitely seeing more. And we've got I'm in Florida, and we've got like a networking group that is medical practitioners and holistic practitioners that meet, so we can all work together and kind of figure out ways of making this stuff more synchronous. And it's so much more important for women, for all the reasons that you were saying. And actually on my health coaching course, it was so interesting that almost all of the study, she'd say, oh, there's a very early bit of research that's been done, and so now we know the next stage has been funded. So it is starting to come, but obviously this stuff takes ages. So they'd say like, oh, there's been early studies, it's very small, and now they've just got funding for this big study, so hopefully in 4 or 5 years time we'll know, but it's showing this. So it's coming.
Yeah. It is coming. It is coming. Hopefully, we've seen a lot of financing changes in research in the last year, so we'll see where it goes. But
and and that, I think, from my experience here recently, is that that's what more and more women are turning to different kinds of practice, because they kind of understand there are differences, and they also want to take control of it themselves. And they don't necessarily want to just have a pill and go away. They want to make kind of whole lifestyle changes, and so this whole thing of understanding how to be in tune with your body is like a big part of that, isn't it?
100%. Yeah. And I think it's just so magical, like when women really do start to understand what they're capable of and what they're possible from, and like what's available to them. Like that's the part that lights me up so much, when we can start seeing like women operating at their fullest capacity, not feeling exhausted and burnt out and struggling and frustrated and all of these symptoms that women are experiencing. Like when you are operating at your fullest capacity, like I firmly believe that women have the power to change the world.
Yeah.
Not that men don't. Like I love men. I have a son that I love. I have a husband that I love. I have a dad that I love. Like, right? Like I love men, and I will never be a men basher. Like that's not my thing. So when I say I think women have the power to change the world, like no bad vibes to men.
Yeah.
But I do think that women have something so magical that we can give the world, and that the sense of compassion and collaboration and community and support and love. And I think that is a big part of what our world is missing these days. And the impact that could have in the world if every woman was operating at their 100% instead of at their like 25 or 40%, you know, like if you were operating at your fullest capacity, like what could you create in this world? Like what could you gift to the next generation? What could you give to the people around you? What could you give to yourself? Like when you are operating in that place. And that's what I think is so magical.
Yeah, I completely agree. So on that, I think I did ask you this at the beginning, before we started recording as well. But I often find that a lot of women can be quite resistant when you bring up some of this cycle stuff if it's not something they've thought about before. So how do you deal with that? Because I imagine you get a lot of that.
Yeah. I think it takes time. I think some people are more resistant to it and open to it. I do get a lot of comments around, you know, like if women want to work differently, they should be paid differently. And that's why there's a wage gap and like all these different things. And I think it's like understanding as women, like if you are embracing this and going on this journey, like you are going down the path that's the least, like the least traveled path. It's new information. And so to have that awareness that it's maybe not going to always be well received from everybody. And that's okay. And if you are one of those people that's in the, like, I'm not sure I receive this, like, I'm not sure I want to take this in, that's okay. I mean, you don't have to want to sync your body with your cycle. You don't have to understand it, but like you could always start listening to your body. You can always, that is a universal across the board is going to help and support you no matter what, is if you start listening to your body, whether it's around your cycle or not, right? I had a client of mine who sent me a message from the hospital. She said, hey, I just wanted to tell you that I'm so grateful for you helping me learn to listen to my body, because had you not, these symptoms that I was having, I probably would have dismissed. But because of you and listening and learning to my body, I came to the doctor and now I'm having open heart surgery. And so you never know, right? You never know. It may not have anything to do with your cycle, but you can always listen to your body. Always listen to those symptoms. Like, don't override the stress or the sleep or the food changes or like any of those things. Like, and it may not, you know, like don't think it has to do with your cycle. Just start listening to it and start noticing and start listening into it. And I guarantee that will still forever change you.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically my whole job is trying to help people do all of these like that, because it is so powerful. And like you say, I mean, it can help you notice heart symptoms, which we know is the biggest, you know, heart disease is the biggest killer of people in the US. So it's useful to, and it's really bad in women because it's different symptoms that often get dismissed. But even just like you say, doing a bit of breath work before you start something, or sitting down, and all of these things that don't necessarily have to do with your hormones or the forefront, I guess you can still implement those.
For sure. Like all you have to do is like simple little changes, and I guarantee you will see massive shifts.
So I've taken up plenty of your time, but before we completely wrap up, like when people are wanting to start thinking about this in a way that they can kind of practically implement, where should they start? Apart from just the listening. Once they've done the listening.
I would say having some sort of system that you can track what's going on in your body is great. I love using paper trackers because it's easier for me to kind of like visually see month to month to month what's changing. Where I live in a digital world. So if you have a digital tracker that you want to use, then that's great. My recommendation would be to find something that you can track multiple symptoms. So not just when my period is, when my ovulation is, and that's about it, but looking at how did your cravings change? How did your sleep change? How did your, you know, like the way you were thinking change? Like how, allowing you to kind of track all of those types of things so that you have that awareness and can start to see trends over time. So that would be 100% like my first recommendation of like, if you're right now, like, where do I go? What do I do? Is just start tracking it. Just start tracking like what's actually happening in your body. And maybe it's a different thing. Like right now, maybe you're just tracking, hey, I want to just pay attention to how I'm sleeping. And maybe it's just tracking your sleep. And maybe then it's like, hey, I want to track my like blood pressure or whatever, like whatever it is, right? Like don't feel like you have to take on the world of tracking everything at the exact same time. But what can you track? And like you and I both have the Aura Ring. I love the Aura Ring. Like I changed my diet back in November, early October, November sometime. And I watched like HRV, like your heart rate variability is a huge health predictor. And I watched as I changed my diet, my heart rate variability tanked. And then I sort of let up off the diet and tried something different, like eating a different way in March-ish. And I watched it whoop, right back up. And I was like, okay, my body did not like the way I was eating. Yeah. It did not like that, you know? And so I think it's just really helpful to have tools even like that you can have, they're tracking kind of stuff for you that you're not even paying attention to. Like, you know, your sleep, how you're sleeping, how you're eating at night, or how things you're eating are changing. So a tool like that can be really helpful too. So it just takes a little bit of the thinking power out of it.
Yeah. And what I started doing with that was like tracking. Yeah. So like 1 month I track, you know, when I have alcohol or when I have more caffeine and those kind of things. And you can start, you can just, and it's quite passive. So just in the morning, put it in, and then, yeah, you can start to notice patterns because it's passively tracking other stuff. So then you can be like, oh, here was all the times I had alcohol and the sleep, and see what was happening. And I quite like that because, like you say, you don't always think about those things like with the diet, where suddenly it's actually doing something that you probably wouldn't have noticed otherwise for a lot longer.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, that's great advice. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing. If people want to, you know, work with you or know more about you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. Well, I would say my book is great. If you want to grab that, I will be happy, Ellie, if you want me to give it away. I can give a free copy to anybody in the United States. You cover shipping and handling, not you particularly, but the listener. I'm like, Ellie, you're going to cover shipping and handling for every person that uses this link. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I'd be happy to give a free copy. Right now, I can only do it in the United States because shipping and handling internationally is so costly and so expensive. But if you wanted to do that, I'm sure we can hook up a link in the show notes for you for that. And then if you wanted to find it, if you're international and not in the United States, you can find that at cyclesyncyourbusiness.com. Otherwise, my favorite place to hang out is on Instagram. So you can find me just at my first and last name over there. If you have any other questions or anything that's, you know, coming up for you or whatever, I've got loads of resources and tools and different things over there, or send me a DM. I'm happy to answer anything in the DMs over there too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been really great.
Thank you. I appreciate having you here.
I hope you all enjoyed that. I loved talking to Renae. I think she's really clear about using the kind of medical knowledge that she has and then syncing that with the more holistic stuff around, you know, women's health and hormones. And I love it. I think it's a really valuable way to work. We've obviously talked about lots of the ways you can work with her. And just say again, if you want to get a free copy of her book, you just pay for the shipping. The link is in the show notes, and I'll have it on my Instagram as well. And then if you just use the code Ellie, you know, it's good for me as well, to show that my audience is engaged. It's a good way to support my business as well. I really hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next week for my solo episode.